Okay, I'm letting everyone in.
Let them in. A couple minutes late there.
Yep.
Had another call earlier. All right. I think we got get everybody coming in. Everybody's having a good week. Let's see. Let me pull up we'll get into a Q&A, and then I know there's some questions that I want to make sure that we get addressed in the group, talking about some of the market conditions and changes, and just general Q&A on what people may have see coming up. So let me go to Facebook questions. Pull this up real quick. Hey, if you guys got any questions, you can obviously put it in the chat. Okay. Oh, before I forget, because I forgot last week. Guys, this group is getting extremely large. We're almost 4,000 people. So obviously there's Eric and myself and a couple of other, we have a fairly good support team, and we have some other people in the background. But if you guys are interested in doing anything further than what we're sharing with you in Office Hours Live, LV, put Creative Dealmaker Academy into the chat, and we can go in there, go watch the video. If there's something that makes sense to you guys, just follow the instructions. And we're expanding our mentorship, if you will, that allows us to, between Eric and myself and our internal team, to really help get more deals done, because time is really critical right now, because the opportunity is just absolutely phenomenal. So anyway, so I'm going to pull up questions right now here. Go here. So what we got. If you got something that it isn't answered and you want to talk more, raise your hand. We can do that as well. All right. So here we go. Question number 1. Okay. Let's see what this one says. Marie says we are, and I don't, guys, I look at these questions like right now. I don't ever look at it because I always like to see if I can get stumped, because I just sometimes I am, and I like to know. I don't like to prepare for the questions. It's more fun this way. So we may not know the answers. We're going to find out. We are closing on a house in the next week or 2 and have a question about the furnace AC system. We believe the owner had been heating the home mainly with space heaters, such as Eden Pure. We had 4 of them. And so we're not sure of the functionality of the furnace. Would you recommend we have someone inspect and service the unit before we sell it to our owner finance buyers? Well, the short answer to that is no, for me. I'm always talking as if it's me. And here's the reason why. Because I never owned the house. I don't want to assume anything. I never occupied the house, never lived in a house. I don't know anything about the house. All I'm doing is offering the house to an owner finance buyer and saying, here it is. Here's what I do know. And it's up to them if they choose to get an inspection. It's up to them if they want to get an appraisal. It's up to them to get a survey. All those things. None of those things have any impact on me. Now, do I want to sell them something that's in working condition? Yes, but at the end of the day, the stuff I'm selling, unless I'm doing rehab, is being sold as is. We're just becoming the bank. That's all that we're doing, and we're using the property as a way to do it. So, if I was going to keep it as a rental property, I may want to know it. But that there again, that's just my position on it. Some people want to go. It's like rehab, guys. Most people over rehab properties. They over rehab properties that just don't need to be rehabbed, because they use their own opinion on what something should or should not look like. And that's fine. But at the end of the day, I think it's much more important to know what the homeowner wants, not what I want, what Eric wants, or anybody else for that matter. So we've done this owner flip, but one thing that you could do, and I have a problem doing it, and it's a little tricky when you haven't done it, is sometimes you could offer a home warranty, like an extended home warranty, like American Home Shield or something like that. Throw a $500 and say, look, here, I don't know the history of it. Here's a home warranty. We'll pay at our expense. You can renew it in a year if you want, and pay the deductible and move on. So I do that. I do that on occasion too. I usually use that as sort of my bargaining piece of it, but we really want people to know what they're buying. We're not trying to hide anything, trying to be extremely transparent, but I don't need to go inspect the roof and the foundation and the plumbing, because not my house. I'm just a bank, right? Think about it. Does a conventional, if anybody goes and gets a conventional loan, okay, because that's what this is, does the lender require you to get a home inspection? Yes or no? And it could be different state by state. So I'm not going to tell you what I think the answer is. Just put it in the chat. Kevin Smith says yes. What state is that in, Kevin? Just curious. Florida. Okay. Anybody else? I'm just curious. You have to get if the lender requires a home. I know it's not part of Dodd-Frank. If it's a septic system. Okay. Now that's on a conventional loan, right? What about on a refi? What about on a home on a lot? So who of those says yes? Interesting. Okay. Now FHA is a whole different ballgame. Okay. They're going to want to do all kinds of, I just sold one. I don't sell to FHA buyers very often because they're a pain in the ass. I have a house that sold on it to an FHA buyer, and they inspected it. I think we talked about this last time. Came back 3 times and kept adding new stuff. And the last thing was put dirt around the perimeter of the house. What the hell does that even mean? How much dirt? Like most of the time, FHA wants you to remove dirt. They want you to remove dirt because it's too much dirt and it gets above the footer of the house. The footer is that little, 8 to 10 inches of concrete barrier that goes around the perimeter, like the footer. And they don't want the dirt above that because that's where water can get into the house, depending on where it is. So they usually want you to remove it and then grade it down so the water runs away from the house. I get it. They go, so who knows? I don't know what that means. So it's very subjective, unfortunately, which is very frustrating at the end of the day. So there again, I would always say, we're the lender. We can require them to do an inspection. We can require them not to. We're not required by law. I'm not required by law in the state of Texas, at least, to require them to do a survey, an appraisal, or inspection. However, if I do it, I have to make it available. That's why the disclosures are so important that are in there. It says that's why the contract is so important. That's why using a transaction manager or a coordinator and using an RMLO, because guess what's in the RMLO underwriting package? Disclosures. What do you think the disclosures say? It says you have a right for an appraisal. If the lender orders an appraisal, they have to give it to you. Okay. Yada 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 yada. If you pull credit and you have to give them responses. And I'm not going to get into the details on all that stuff because that's what the RMLO gets paid to do, even though it's us as the lender and us as the responsible party. They're just doing it in behalf of what's required to under the rule. Okay. Next question is, must both my loan from the seller and my loan to my buyer be set up as separate accounts with the servicer? Or do I need an account for my loan from my buyer? Man, that's a great question. And it depends. It depends. Okay. Some servicers won't touch your underlying mortgage. They'll tell you that, well, I got to get authorization from Wells Fargo to pay them the money. Not true. They think it's that way because that's how they interpret what it says. Other servicers will say, yeah, absolutely. Tell me what you want, where you want me to pay the money. Okay. So I'll just tell you how I do it. So it says both my loan from my seller. So I'm assuming that whether it's a seller finance loan to me or a sub-2 note to me, I'm going to still create the wrap on the backside with my buyer, and I'm going to take all that data and it's going to my servicer. And my servicer is going to manage the entire transaction. That's what I do. Now, people say, well, you can't do that. I go, well, then maybe you need to find another servicer, because my servicer will. I hear it all the time. Well, they won't do a first and a second loan. Okay, find another servicer. I mean, there's servicers everywhere, right? I can just tell you how we do it and what I require of my servicer, because I give them a crap ton of notes and we created them, and I put a lot of volume on their platform. And sometimes here's the problem. The problem is that most people don't know how to structure it correctly. So the servicer freaks out because they don't have all the details. They don't have the file correctly. Gets back to what we talked about in the beginning for note creation 101. You have to have the right protocol in the process and the systems in the process to make sure that when you give that file to the servicer, it's done correctly. So they don't have any problems with that. Because if they have problems, they get scared. When they get scared, they say no. Okay. And you have to explain to them why you're doing it this way and why you need it done and what you're trying to accomplish. And if you come from a position of being an expert and an authority, you can show them in what they need to do. And if they still balk and say no, then find another servicer. Hey, Eric, so are you, is FCI does first and seconds, do they not?
Yeah, they do.
They do. They
Yep.
don't have a problem in it. Do they have a problem paying an underlying note to a seller on a wrap? They'll do wraps too, right?
Yeah, they'll do wraps. Yeah, you
So
just have to
FCI, which
put it in the
probably-
servicing.
I mean, I don't know where they are I don't know where FCI is relative to largeness of servicers, but they're one of the largest. They're one of the largest. They're out of Orange County. So
Well,
Very
they have a great platform. Their service. I mean, everybody complains about servicers in general, the customer service, but if we're outside of Texas and we're using FCI, I mean, I like FCI. They've
well,
been
let
very
me tell you why
responsive to me
people
and
have
they're
problems with it. Let me clear this up, okay? Why people have problems with servicers? Because they did a shit job creating the note to begin with. So they got a
Yep.
shit buyer. Okay. So you're managing a problem. Okay. Well, the servicer is no better at solving that problem than you or I am. Okay. At the end of the day, period. Okay. So if that's the case, don't put yourself in a position. Look, you can't predict the future. I get it, but you can put yourself in a better position to be successful by doing the stuff that we talked about doing, either directly or indirectly. That's it. Don't take $500 down payment and write a 3% mortgage and expect that you're going to get paid on it in a tertiary market in Iowa. Okay, that's what we're talking about, right?
That's a rental. That's called a rental property.
It could be called that, but there's a lot of people. They used to call them the term that we used to call them was super rentals. So what they would do is they weren't really rentals. They would sell or transfer ownership and do a contract for deed, but it was really a rental, right? So they would take a little down so they could transfer ownership from a liability and a maintenance standpoint, but knowing that there's a high probability that that borrower would not perform at some point in the future, and they would get it back 2-3 years later, and they were okay with it, and they would just do it all over again. That was done a lot. I never did it because that just doesn't know what we do. I want to be the bank. I want to do it one time. I want to get paid in perpetuity and go on and do the next one and let the portfolio build. But that is a model that some people like to do. It's not my model. All right. So hope that answered the question. It's a question for servicers, but you know what? If you're using a transaction coordinator, okay, like a constant close, that question, they should have the answer to that question, and they should know exactly for which state you're in and the style of wrap that you're doing, whether it be seller finance or sub two, and be able to build that out. And they should have the answer to that question. If they don't, you need to let me know immediately so we can address it and figure out what it is. But you got to let them know that up front, because if they don't know what you're trying to do, then they're gonna create it incorrectly, because they're gonna assume that it's not important to you, okay? Unless you tell them that. All right, let's go to the next question here. Anything you want to add on servicing, Eric? Because you've dealt with a couple. You do FCI. What I think you've done.
I have West
Westar.
FCI, Westar, Evergreen. I think I've dealt with Pioneer. Personally, I like FCI and August REI because of the platform. It's just easier for me. And then if you set the loan up properly and your taxes and insurance and everything's escrowed properly and it's done on the front end, I can tell you right now, if I've done it when I bought existing non-performing assets and I had to go and fix the escrows, it's a disaster. It's a pain. So if we do it right on the front end, that's why we do what we do now. It just kind of runs itself, man. That's it. Go find a great deal They'll find a
Yeah.
good deal. And now with the market where it's at, I mean, this is probably, I mean, we made a lot of money in the crash, okay, of 2008. This is there's nothing more better than this dream time
This is
right now than ever.
this is arguably
This is
50
the
times,
other thing.
10 to 15 times, 10 to 50 times better than what we just came out, well, when we came out in 08, because there's two things, and we don't get into the office hours live because that's not the cash now, cash flow later. It's more for the mentorship. But there's so much cheap debt out there. We didn't have cheap debt. We did not have. Not only did we not have cheap debt, it was all adjustable.
Yeah,
Freaking, it was a nightmare.
Well, this is why we've added another coaching arm to our success path for the people in our group to be able to move faster. That's why we did this. So
Yeah, time is
that's why we did it. Yep.
So it says, Jason asked, can I use my HELOC to acquire a property and still do the 2-note exit strategy? So I'm assuming that you can use HELOC money to acquire. Okay, let's make that assumption, because sometimes, you know, money can only be used for different things. But assuming that is absolutely, there's they're independent of each other, right? You have the acquisition. You can acquire with cash, hard money, private money, HELOC, you know, bank money, seller finance, sub 2, whatever. How you acquire is completely independent to the exit. Okay, so how you acquire is one thing, how you exit is different. We're only talking about exiting with creating the note, okay, which is technically going to be a wrap. And that's when we want to write a first and a second for reasons that we talked about, so we can exit quickly if we need to. But you could acquire any of those ways, and you can exit a lot of different ways. You can exit as a short-term rental. You can exit as a long-term rental. You can exit as a lease option. Those are things that we're not going to talk about in here, because I like writing notes better, and you want to learn about lease options, and go call our good friend John Jackson. He would love to hear from you. So
yeah.
Or on the gram. But anyway, those guys are great at what they do. It's just not the strategy that we don't do. And I'm going to say the reason why. It's really, really simple. It's because banks don't do those strategies. And until somebody convinced me that what a bank does is not smart and the other strategies are better, then I'm not going to personally going to do it. Maybe I'm being too bullish on it. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why the banks are the biggest, baddest on the block, because they learned a long time ago how to control versus owning. It's just that simple. And if it's good enough for the bank, it's good enough for most. And it's definitely good enough for me. I learned the value of amortization. You can get depreciation in a lot of different ways. We talked about that. Get it in commercial properties, get it in multifamily, get it in storage units. I don't need it in single family. That's it. So, all right. Anything you want to add to that, Eric, before we go to the next question?
No, that's good. No, I like it.
All right. So Barbara says, I have listened to your calls, seller financing, notes, crypto stocks, etc. Look at the properties you are selling. I am wondering if I have 100K and need to catch up for a college retirement. Can you help me create a plan? Then how would I add money and sell the properties? Well, I'm sure I can give any financial advice, right? Because we're not CPAs, we're not attorneys, we're not financial advisors. But
we're going to tell you what we do.
That's it.
And that's it.
If I had $100,000, and Eric, you answer the question, okay? If I had $100,000, I would try to leverage and create as much equity position with that $100,000 as I could. I would not take what I would not do is take $100,000 and go buy $100,000 property. Okay. But what I would do, I would go take $100,000 and I'd go try to find seller financing deals that cost me $15,000 to $20,000 net. I do 5 of those and maybe get $1 million of assets, right? Maybe I buy a $200,000 house and I get, it costs me net $15,000 a piece because I'm getting money from the down payment. I'm paying the seller. And now I've got $500,000 to $1 million. I would do that. I would do the same.
And this is for student. You need $100,000 to send a child or someone to school for an undergrad education? Is
Well,
that
it
the
says here, it
question?
says, I'm wondering if I have 100K and need to catch up for, I think what they're saying is I'm preparing for education, I'm preparing
Hmm.
for retirement. How do I take that $100,000 and build it up to
It's,
have the money at some
I,
point in the future?
I don't look at it as 100,000. I look at how do I can create cash flow to pay the bills, and then how to keep compounding every note, 300 here, 300 here, 300 here. It'll just say, hey, if I wanted to create $300 a month in cash flow on a note creation, and I do one a week,
Yeah.
just one a week in this environment, could you do one a week? Like it's really not that hard. The opportunities are
Look,
there.
you can do this and not come out of pocket any cash.
Yes, that's what we talk. That's what we teach.
But I'm saying there's a lot of really good opportunities that if you came out a little bit of cash and you can float cash for 60, 90 days, even 6 months, and get it all back and then get the benefit of the remaining
Yes.
30 years. I mean, who would not take $5,000 today if they had it to invest? They get their money back in 12 to 18 months on that 5,000 and get the balance in perpetuity for the remaining 28 and 29 years of cash flow and have all your cash completely out of the deal.
Nick, we're doing a deal right now. It's like a $24,000 second lien, and it was a property that we were kind of 50-50 on, but we're like, let's do it. So I think we're going to create a $26,000 note. We're going to make a couple $100 a month, pay ourselves back in 26 months, and that thing will crank out. I mean,
yeah, the yield on that is
how many
probably
rental
40,
properties
50%.
do you get your down payment back without without refinancing, which is harder now than ever, in 26 months? I mean, you aren't. So we're okay with that. We rather than sell it and make a few thousand, we'll just create a second lien and look back 10 years from now and keep cranking away at it. Yeah, I'd be looking at as how do I turn that into consistent income rather than the gross dollar amount, right? Is $1 million better than if you had $1 million liquid or 10,000 a month cash flow? What's better? That's the question you have to ask yourself.
Yes.
Personally, for me, it's the income. The income is more important than the big chunks of cash sitting in the bank not doing anything for me.
So, 100%. So Barbara asked, can you please explain why you sell the note? When you sell the note, you sell it at a discount. I think we talked about this in the past. Did we talk about it? Maybe I just didn't check that off. But I think it's worth noting because it depends. Okay, you may not have to sell it for a discount, but you want to model it at a discount. Depends on. There's a lot of things that come in, and there's a time value of money. What's the investment, the value that the note buyer is buying in? What's the LTV or loan to value? What's the asset look like? Was there repairs done on it? Was the sale price at 100% of value? Was it at 50% of value? All these things impact the discount, the yield. What does the note buyer want for a yield? There's no black and white answer. Not everybody wants. Some people think 6% is a great return. Other people won't get out of bed for less than 26%. Right? So you're dealing with subjectivity in this stuff. What we can tell you is this: the national average for performing first notes, they trade somewhere between 82 to 84%. We trend closer to 90% because of the way the notes are written. The other reason why notes are discounted is because most of the time notes have what I call scratches and dents on them. Okay. We use the car analogy all the time. You have two identical Ford F-150 pickup trucks, 50,000 miles, 2015 builds, white with tan interior. On the surface, they seem to be the same, but one has never had its oil changed. The tires are the original, the brakes don't work. The seats are all chewed up, and it's been beat to hell, with dings and scratches and dents. And you have the other one that has meticulous maintenance records, has been kept in the garage. There isn't a blemish on it. Which one's worth more money? They're the same truck, same year, same color, same everything, same mileage, because one is more reliable and dependable. You're trying to figure out, you're trying to project risk, right? Which one do you think is going to perform better for longer before there's a situation? That's it.
And our notes are written on the second one, the nice one, versus written on a napkin, and you didn't have any ability, it didn't show any ability to pay, you didn't do any underwriting, you didn't do anything on the borrower, because the borrower is the key to this model, is how much they put down, the value of the
And the
property,
asset, the
and their
borrower
ability
and
to
the
pay.
asset. The
Yeah,
asset's really
yeah.
important too,
Yeah,
relative to value.
Yeah, and this
So-
is why it's so important, you guys, why you guys are on this call, and why Nick and I share this stuff, is because obviously we're note buyers. We want to teach you how to create the perfect notes. So we'll buy it from you, so you have a free and clear second. So the gal that had the $100,000, so she can rinse and repeat that money over and over and over and over and over again, and then just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tori asked, know of anyone wanting to invest in Texas. So I don't know what that means, but I will tell you what I do know about Texas. Texas is the #1 state for seller financing by a long margin, by a big number. The seller financing is $28 billion in the last year, $28 billion. Of that $28 billion seller financing, seller carry market, but those are all mortgages written by people like us on this call that aren't named Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, whoever. Okay, $28 billion of the beat. That's a big number for something that most people don't even know even exists. So people want to invest in Texas because it's 25% of that $27 billion is Texas alone. Okay, so I would say if you want to invest in Texas and you want to do deals in Texas, put it in the damn Facebook group and say, hey, I want to lend on deals in Texas. I want to buy notes in Texas. I want to fund deals in Texas. I want to wrap deals in Texas. And
but Nick, why do we like Texas and Arizona and some of these other states? The reason why is the banking laws are in favor of us, of the lenders, and they're in favor of landlords. And so we want to stay in those states that we, there's so much opportunity in those states. Why go anywhere else? And you can do it.
You don't need to.
Virtually, you can do it. You can build a team around you. You can, the opportunities, and then the seller finance market that you said is whatever, 26 billion. It's so big. It doesn't matter. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger now as you guys start understanding the creative side of it and what we do on that. I mean, the cash flow is crazy, but literally to just structure these notes with first and seconds and giving yourself all the exits in the world when events happen, if they do, is just so huge. And the end result is, how many homeowners can you help get homeownership today that isn't able to get traditional bank financing? And it's exploding. It's going to get bigger. And if you're that person in your market, or that person that understands what we're talking about here, you're already, if you're on the call today and you just literally have never been on this call before till right now, more than most people already in the last
sure.
40, 35
But it's not
minutes.
about knowing. It's not about knowing. It's about
You're gonna ask questions in your head right now. What, first and second? How does that work? Whatever.
But to your point, it's real important. It doesn't matter. It's all about execution. Here's the only things that you guys need to do. I'm making the assumption that you're taking action. Okay, you have to find the property. Okay, I'm not going to find the property for you. Okay, you need to be able to analyze the deal and see if it's a deal or not a deal. There again, that's something you guys have to do.
And that's literally it's a free spreadsheet in the Facebook group. That's how you found us. So it's in there.
Then you need to be able to figure out how to fund the deal. Okay. All right. And there's resources in there. And then you need to find a buyer. That's it. That's it. Okay. What was that? Yeah. Was that the link for the resources? Okay. Make sure you.
It's in the chat.
That's it. You don't need to know how to underwrite the buyer or how to create a first and a second note or how to exit out of it. You might want to know, but it's not a requirement. Your job, in my opinion, is to know how to find deals, analyze deals, fund the deal, and find a buyer. And Jesus Christ, isn't that what you do already if you're a wholesaler? Isn't that what you do as a fix and flipper? Isn't that what you do as a buy and hold investor? You have to, all three of those, you got to, regardless if you're a note, whether you're a fix and flipper, a wholesaler, or a buy and hold investor, okay? Whether you do any of those, you have to find the deal. You have to figure out if it's a deal or not so you can make the offer. You need to fund the deal, and you need to find the end buyer. Nothing has changed. The only difference is you find a different type of end buyer and you're able to stay in the deal long term. This is not rocket science or anything differently than anybody that's already doing deals. It's just a different exit. And with that different exit allows you to acquire differently, right? And pay potentially more money. You know, I didn't say pay more cash, I say pay more for the property, right? Big difference, because you can leverage that with some now, some later. You know, that's in the mentorship and stuff like that. So let's go. Andy said, how would I find a buyer for a second mortgage that can move fast? Okay. Well, you can, just like you can find a buyer for the first one, but I will tell you right now, if you're gonna, the reason why, this is why we keep second notes, okay? The reason why we keep second notes, because the value, the street value of the second note, it's 30 to 50% of face value, okay? So let's just say it's a $20,000, let's just say it's a $20,000 second note, okay, at 10%. You may be able to get $8,000 to $10,000 cash for it. Well, if you run the amortization table on that, you're going to get that much money back in, I don't know, run the math on it. So unless you really desperately need the cash, you're much better not selling, because you take a huge haircut, a huge discount on it. That's why we want you to write a first and a second note, because when you don't write the first and the second, you're discounting the whole amount. It crushes you.
That's why we have this program, and that's why Nick and I talk about this and share it, because of the mistakes we made when we just wrote first liens and we didn't create the second lien. Now that you create the second lien, you know, you could dig into this a little bit, Nick, and say, oh, well, if I was only going to get 10,000, why not just sell a partial for 10 and give them the money for the next few years and then get it back? You can do that. It's just all about playing with the numbers and the math and your need for the cash. I would always partial as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but we're not gonna have that conversation on this call, but that's.
I know, but they're going to have it in their head and wonder what a partial is.
Well, then they can go figure it out, but we're not gonna talk about it here. But here's the thing is that when you don't, here's where people make the mistake. They go, well, that's only gonna be an $8,000 note that pays me $80 a month, or it's only 12,000. Yeah, but you know what you're gonna get if you don't do that? You're gonna give it all away in the discount. So you might as well keep it. You're going to get paid on it, because you got to remember, this is really important. A $10,000 note is worth way more than $10,000. It's worth, if it's, well, let's just see what it comes out to be. Let's see if I go to calculator here. Let me see if I can share the screen real quick. Let's just figure this out.
We always do these based on 10 years, right?
Well, I'm just going to show the true value on, okay? Let's call it let's just say you have a $20,000 second note, okay? Can you see my screen okay? Can you see it?
Yep.
All right, so $20,000 second note.
Yeah, I can see it.
9.95% interest only gives you $174 a month, okay? Not gonna go rich on it, but that's what it is. But look, over 30 years, that $20,000 note pays $63,000. Because of amortization. Why would you?
You gotta look. So look 10 years out just for fun, because let's just say it refis at 10.
I go in a second. So why would you want to sell this $20,000 note if it's worth $63,000 in perpetuity over time for somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000? Because if you make $175 a month, and let's say you get $10,000 on it, let's just take the math on it. $10,000 divided by 175 is 5 years. That's it. So that means you're going to get all your money back in 5 years, and you're going to get the balance of 25 years on the back end. So Eric, you said go out 10 years, right?
Yeah, just say what you give up if it goes 10 years, 120 months.
Okay,
which is pretty standard for our seller finance deals, especially moving forward.
Yeah, and it could even go longer, but let's just we can't predict the future, but you can pick any number in time. So 120 months. Okay. So what this says here, this is a second lien that's owned free and clear, because we wrote a first and a second, we paid it off, the debt, and now let's make the assumption this is what you have left over. Okay. 120 months, say the buyer pays you off because they refinanced it, they sold it, whatever. Well, they're going to call the bank for the payoff. They're going to, who's the bank? You're the bank. I'm the bank. Whoever holds the second note is the bank. And they go, title company goes, well, what's the payoff amount? And you're going to say it's $18,172. So you're going to collect, in this example, $175 a month, free and clear cash flow, because there's no debt on it. Okay. Plus you're going to get a payoff in 10 years if that's what it is. So do the math on it. If you take 175, so take 175 times 120 payments, about $21,000 worth of cash flow. Okay. And another $18,000 there. I mean, that's $39,000 off a note that you created and you did it in, in and out of it in 45 to 60 days. These deals are everywhere. And if you buy it and you acquire this with using the seller money and you get more favorable terms, the numbers just continue to get better and better and better. So that's how that all shakes down and works. So Eddie Fernandez.
Real quick, Pete
Yeah,
asked a question. Hey, real quick, so Pete asked, do you take in consideration of inflation? Do you take inflation into consideration with the future payments? And when we have no cost on it and I don't have any expenses on it, and the buyer's paying me appreciation, so that the appreciation is basically our inflation, and the amortization is our appreciation and inflation protection. So I don't take it into account because I don't have any cost in it. That note has no cost. It's
I don't
free money.
care. What do I care?
I don't care. That's not.
I personally don't
Yes,
care.
is inflation. Let's be honest. Inflation is a real big problem right now, but it's still cash flow. You know what I mean? It's still cash flow, and I'm getting paid 10% on that debt.
To do more deals.
Amortized. Yeah, I'll just do another deal.
So
How many more
Eddie said,
175s do I want to?
Eddie said, hey, new to the group. I live in Kansas City, looking to connect with anyone in the area making deals. So if you guys are in the Facebook and you do deals in Kansas City, post it, let Eddie know. Looking to, partner up with some guys. Take advantage of the group, guys. The whole point of this group is so you can collaborate and do deals together. You guys all bring different values to everything, and this is the deep blue ocean, man. I'm telling you right now, there's no reason to try to keep all this stuff to yourself. I could tell everybody on this call exactly how I do it, why I do it, and give you the secret sauce and recipe, which we do already. And you guys would not even come close to impacting what I do on a regular basis. It's impossible.
There's too many buyers out there looking for this opportunity.
Way too many. Way too many. All right. So
especially when rents increasing, inflation. If you give someone a home, they'll pay a premium for it now.
I have not done this recently, but I think there's an opportunity for this. So Anthony said, looking to pick up a portfolio of properties and exit on a 2-note wrap. Is that going to be feasible? And is there going to be enough margin on those deals? Well, it depends on how you acquire it. But we used to buy portfolios, and what I would do is I'd buy rental portfolio and convert them into seller finance buyers. So that means maybe 10% of the renters we could convert over to seller financing. But what we would do is we would just wait for their lease to expire if we bought a portfolio, and then we wouldn't renew the lease, and then we'd go find a seller finance buyer. That's what we would do. And we did that. It's been a while because we could do that when it wasn't so competitive from a seller's perspective. Well, that's where we're getting in now. So there's going to be sellers that are there's going to be sellers that are going to say, you know what? I ran the race. I doubled my value. I'm ready to be out of this now. And they're going to sell it because they were in it for, $100,000 property. Now the value is $150,000 to $200,000. They're ready to take the money.
But they'd also love to get a return on all their equity too, without having to go put it in the stock market and get absolutely crushed. You know what I'm saying? So there's opportunities there. Yeah.
Let's see. So Brian said, I know most purchase with hard money. Not sure that's 100% true, but hard money is an option. Does anyone JV to bring in capital that hard money doesn't cover? I think you're probably referring to gap funding, right?
The gap funding, yeah.
So I'm curious, has anybody tried to go on and get a hard money loan in the last 30 to 45 days? If you have, raise your hand. I want to ask you some questions. This is an important thing. somebody that's done deals over the last couple of years, that's trying to get hard money now. I want to talk about what's changed in the eyes of the hard money lender relative to ratios, whether the cash to get into the deal and stuff like that. So if you've done anything, raise your hand. If not, we'll just move on. I think hard money, just like banks, they change their underwriting requirements. Okay, no different. Hard money lenders are freaking shutting up.
One of my hard money lender buddies in Phoenix was he's been the largest hard money lender. I mean, when I first got in the business, I was borrowing money from him at 18% interest and was happy because I looked at it as an 18% partner, right? And I would collateralize or I put some down payment money, whatever. He went down. It got so competitive. They were down under 10 and now they're back up at 12 again. So times are changing. There's equity,
Yeah.
and that's just a local Phoenix deal investor that does hard money in Arizona, but they were one of the largest. I mean, I don't know, 100 million out at any given time. That's not huge, but it's a good business, And so now they're up at 12, and so they were in a place where they were, competing with all these big hedge funds and stuff, and now those guys are starting to sit on their hands a little bit and be very conservative on who they're lending money to and how much and terms and points and all sorts of stuff. So
guys, all these are great questions, and this is most of this stuff, that's what, it really fits into that mentorship side of it. So if you really are serious about doing the deals, then that might be something you want to look at, because the environment is changing really quick. I knew it was going to change, and I knew the pendulum was going to shift. I didn't think it was going to shift this fast. But the best analogy I can look at, it's like going up the mountain, right? You can go up the mountain. Going up the mountain is a lot slower going up than it is coming back down, right? You can get down the mountain a hell of a lot faster. And that's what's happening. The market, as fast as it seemed like it increased, was really going up the mountain. Because now it's going to come down even faster going the other direction. And what I thought would take 6 months, we're seeing stuff in 30 days now. Who knows? And I don't want to get into
but the key is, Nick, is use our, I've been doing this since 2003. You've been doing it as long as I have. And every different creative thing you could possibly think of, we've done. And so just pick our brains, man. Put it in the Facebook group. Let's try to answer these questions. Our goal, just so you guys know, like, we're active in Facebook, but we love to go through all the data from Facebook for that week, any questions and whatever, and then answer them in the group and do some deal or no deals and do some analysis of deals that are happening right now, today, on how we would structure deals. The one we did last week was really cool because that was an interesting one, because there was an exit before, you borrowed short, sold long, but that exit was huge. It was massive. It was really cool. So these are the things that we do every week. And then obviously we, Nick and I've decided to, have a more of a little bit higher level coaching program in order to scale, because we want to buy more notes. We want to buy more notes from you guys and have them done correctly. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing. And this is a dream time, man. We're gonna go on a nice run. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, they're like, let's go back to that for a second. Notes is the only thing I ultimately care about. So everything that we're talking about is just a means to the end in my world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I only care about the note. I want to be the bank. Okay, that's the only thing I care about. So finding the property and doing all that other crap, it has to be done to get to the end game, which is creating the note to be the bank. Well, I could very easily go out. There's $28 billion of paper floating around every year. That means in the last 4 years, $100 billion of paper has been created. Okay, there's a marketplace. I can go buy that paper. The problem is, if I go buy it, guess what I have to do? I gotta do due diligence on all of it. Guess what those people didn't? Guess what 95% of that $28 billion of paper doesn't do? Doesn't get written the way that we're talking about doing. Gets back to the Ford F-150 example. That means it's got lesser value, right? Well, that's great if you want to buy Look, if you're a mechanic, go buy the beat up truck, right? Because you can fix it and you're okay with it. Guess what I don't want to do? Fix a non-performing note. That's a job.
You just want to find a note or find a property and a buyer and make sure it's clean as a whistle going in, and it's just smooth sailing, and just do them over and over and over again.
There's a huge market for non-performing notes out there. Guess what? I'll never own by choice, a non-performing note, because it's a job. Because let me ask a question: if all my notes are performing, how many of those can I manage? Okay. Then ask the question: if all your notes are non-performing, how many can you manage?
Well, I have both, and I like the first one better.
Yeah, because the 5 non-performing notes is a full-time job. The 1,000 performing notes is cash flow. Why, right? That gets back to the servicing part of it, right? Servicers love performing notes.
Yeah.
That's when you show them that why they're going to be performing. They're much more willing to do what you need them to do, because they see the value, and they don't want to manage non-performing notes any more than you do. That's a job for them. They just want to cash the check every month that you're giving them for the servicing fee. They would love for them never have to talk to a client or your buyer or borrower ever. They just want the check to come in and go out and be done with it. So, all right, next question. It says, Cynthia says, it's a structure question. It says, I think my brain is trying to figure this out based on traditional funding models. How does it work if I purchase the property with seller financing and then sell it with the first position and second position note? When I create the first and second, what is the placement for the original with the seller? Does the original have to be paid off? Is the property now upside down? So I'm going to break this down a little bit. So even though we technically say it's a first and a second note, that's what our buyers, but in theory, it's actually a wrap. So that puts that first and a second technically into potentially a second and third position. Okay. But if we're using hard money, the hard money is going to be the first lien. We're going to wrap the hard money short term. In this example, it could only be for a week, right? It depends on how long it takes us to exit out of it. We're going to wrap it with a new first and second. We're going to take that first lien note that we created, sell that, buy it, and the cash from that transaction is what pays off the underlying hard money note. We don't want to get into weeds on it too much because it's such a short-term situation.
But Nick, that's hard money. But what if, okay, and we won't go into the weeds too much right now, that instead of getting hard money, the seller sells you the house and lets you, and they're your bank at 5% for 30 years.
So they're the first.
Where's your cash
flow
go?
Holder.
Yes, and you still create the first and second. You still do the same thing, but that term allows you to keep it for 30 years. So you would never pay it off unless you'd be crazy to, because you're selling it at 10 and buying it at 5.
Because you might need cash. That's why people sell.
No, I know that, but we
don't ever say that, because they could you may want to,
but you can not, instead of having one big first, then you're selling at a discount. That's why you do
create the opportunity so you have options.
Yes.
That's the thing. Because
someone might say, hey, I'm going to sell you $150,000 worth of Bitcoin for $1 and it's worth 20,000. So you'd probably go liquidate that asset for Bitcoin. Maybe
100%. You get out, there's, life gets in the way.
There's scenarios.
I write a 30-year note today. Life's going to happen between now and when that note matures.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I might want to go on a trip. My daughter might decide to get married and need to pay for that. And my car might, need to be replaced. There's a lot of things that happen, but you want to create the flexibility and the options so you can make a decision.
But the thing that I would do is, if you are getting a seller to carry at 5, let's just use that on a 30-year term, and you're selling it at 10, just figure out the cash flow. It's ridiculous. So you'd really want to come up with the opportunity. You would not want to sell that. If you're in our program, we would advise you otherwise, but you got to do what you got to do, and you never know. Life happens, so you just never know.
It's all relative in terms of the deal that you're getting. I bought stuff at 120% of value before. It's worth 100, and I pay
0% interest.
120.
Mhm.
I get the term and the rate that I need to make this, make the deal
I mean,
happen.
we're doing a deal right now where they're going to do 0% interest. I'm literally going to sell the house and go move that collateral to another asset that I have higher rate interest on. So think about that. We won't go into that right now because that is like the biggest dream in all dreams is having the longest term debt for the lowest interest rate in today's environment and be able to move it around to other assets when you want to, not when they want to. That's the dream. We're in a dream world right now, and it's and knowing how to structure these deals with the right terminology and all the exits that we're talking about, it's awesome.
I love this next question because it's not as intuitive as the answer that it probably most people think it is. It says, do owner finance deals trends tend to follow the traditional market? And I would say they're totally independent of each other. In a seller's market, here's what you got to remember. Okay. Our seller finance buyer can't go get traditional bank funding anyway. Most of them, right?
And hold on. And here's the best part. This is why we go out, because they're typically not going to refinance either. So they're just locked in, paying you for years. So sorry to interrupt, but
that's fine. But so when rates went from 3 to 6, do you think any of our seller finance buyers really cared about that?
No, because they're paying 10.
They couldn't get the 3% anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get it anyway. So it doesn't change anything. Now, what does change is the fact that things are more expensive now, right? We do have inflation. Gas is more expensive. Food.
We get it's all about affordability. So we can move our rate up accordingly as well.
So they still got to feed their family. They still got to put gas in their car, right? They still got to, those costs go up. So if income doesn't increase and their expenses go up, it leaves them less disposable
income. Debt to income. Yeah, their debt to income is affected. So, yes.
That does change it. That's why it's really important for them. You know, rents are going up, could go up too. I mean, but what's going to happen with rents? They're going to have to cap, because you can't just increase rents to hedge inflation, because people aren't going to be able to afford it, typically speaking. But anyway, I'm going to get into that. But the short
hey, real quick, yeah. Andres asked, is the training that goes in, do we go into the weeds more on the training when we do our coaching program? And the answer is absolutely, is what we do. We go deeper into this stuff.
So so here's so let's talk about that. I don't have the slide here. So there's like 10 steps in the process. Anybody that's in the master class and gone through it and watched some of the video, I think it's in the creativedealmaker.com/video, sort of walks through, and I think there's some slides in there. But really, there's you got to find the property, right? You got to be able to, is it a deal or not a deal? You got to be able to fund it. You got to find the buyer. And then from there, you got to be able to underwrite the buyer. You got to create the servicing, create the notes, first and second. Then you got to be able to exit out of it and then repeat. What the mentorship does better than anything, it gets you it helps you get the first 4 steps done. Okay, which is help you with assisting with finding the deal, help evaluating the deal, help funding the deal, and help with the buying side of with finding the buyer to do it. Once you get to that point, you should get the hell out of the way anyway, and let the transaction coordinating team handle the rest of the process. You can learn it. It speeds up your success.
It speeds up your success path to get to where you want to go. And for us, it's cash flow. I mean, it's how fast do you need to get to that number.
Dollar too, right? If you screw it up, we just got a note in today. Somebody tried to do it on their own and did some stuff, and we're missing. They
were missing the second note.
Where's the recorded warranty deed? Where's the second note? All this other crap that goes along with it. Guess what? -2%, -1%, -3%. All of a sudden, now you're selling your note at 80 cents on the dollar because you didn't do the things. Because if you don't have it in the file, we have to, as note buyers, okay, we have to assume the worst, right? We have to project that, oh, they didn't do it right, or they didn't whatever. So
real quick. So we had one of the guys in our group who bought the program, and he went through it. He's very analytical. He's a analytical mindset, engineer mindset, and he wanted to do everything. So we did 2 or 3 deals, and then I think he's doing his fourth or fifth deal now, and he used a transaction coordinator, and he goes, what have I, now clearly we told him what to do, like literally like, don't do that. And he's like, no, I got it. So then he's like, now he's got a transaction coordinator. He's like, I can't believe I didn't invest the amount of money, which is not a lot. He goes, this is the greatest thing ever. Now guess what he has more time to do? Go buy more deals. So by the time this one's done, I'll probably have 3 or 4 more in the pipeline. And so he just figured it out. But it's, you know what, sometimes you get stubborn and want to learn the process, but they fix the things before they happen. The other thing, real quick, Luis asked, do you need a loan servicer to handle the payments of the note? And this is what we do. The answer is yes, every time, all the time. If you ever, because that's how your note has more value. Because if you're not servicing it, you don't have track of it. Here's a perfect example. I had a house that had a fire.
I think the question, wait, before you answer that real quick,
okay.
Question is, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't
the buyer's paying the freaking fees? You're not.
Do you understand that? You're charging $35. The servicer's charging 35 or 40 or 15 or whatever it is. Yep. I'm not paying that. The borrower is paying for it. So why would you want to escrow principal insurance?
So it's principal. So when we talk to a buyer, they pay principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and servicing fee. It's in there, PITIS. Okay, PITIS. And guess what else they pay? The setup fee. If the servicing agreement over the life of the deal with inflation going up, guess what they pay? The increase in the fee. They pay all of it. And guess what you're providing them? Home ownership. You're giving them the American dream. And so don't feel bad for you giving them a fixed payment for the next 30 years. That's how it works. That's the whole point of that. But I think I answered that.
I have one more question, and we'll go to the chat. Process. We'll go to the hands. Okay. So the first question, I love this question. Keegan said, anyone here have experience buying delinquent notes in California? The only thing worse than buying delinquent notes, the only thing better than buying delinquent notes in California is buying performing notes in California. I wouldn't want to do either one of those two things. I mean, just California just is not where I would want to do business. I mean, there's no reason.
It can be done. It can be done. Well, it's just the value our discount would be so low.
You can try to grow freaking corn in the desert too, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But that's not what we're. The short answer is, I don't want non-performing notes, and I surely don't want non-performing in California. But there's people that are the mechanics. We talked about that. If you want to be the mechanic and you're the best mechanic in the world and you know how to buy something at 40 cents on the dollar and make it nice and shiny and new and make a nice spread on it, then knock yourself out. But the answer is, for me, no. And I've done this over 1,000 times. And the last thing I ever want to do is deal with a non-performing note. Because if I have a non-performing note, the only thing I'm going to do with the non-performing note is I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it and free up my time and go figure out how to make more money with this time that I saved from not having to manage a non-performing note. That's it. So that's the whole idea. That's why we do this. So you don't end up with non-performing notes. Now, can you still end up with non-performing notes? Absolutely. But the difference is, here's the thing. This is really, really important. When you create the note from the beginning, you don't ever let it get too far off the wrong path. Okay. Think about this for a second. By definition, when we create the note today and we sell or finance it to the borrower, by definition, by default, it's a performing note, because it's the definition of non-performing is it has to be, miss of 2 consecutive payments. Okay. Without payment. So if that's the definition of non-performing, then it can't be a non-performing note. So it has to be a performing note just by definition. But here's the point that I'm making. Okay. If I write Eric, if Eric buys a property today and I give him the financing on it. Okay. And his payment is due the 1st of the month. Okay. Okay. And I do my job and my servicer does their job. Guess what happens on the 15th of the month? Eric gets a phone call, gets an email, gets a letter, whatever the hell it is. Okay. We're only 15 days down this wrong path that Eric decided to take. Okay. Real easy to get back on track. But if I let Eric continue down the wrong path, and now Eric is now 2 months behind, 3 months behind, 6 months behind, now I got a problem. Because Eric's probably not going to be able to cure that problem as quickly as it could be dealt with when it happens. That's what happens with non-performing. So non-performing by definition means they're already 60 days. Well, we see stuff that's, I mean, Eric, when we looked at that one portfolio, there was stuff that was non-performing. And how old was some of that stuff? Non-performing.
Years.
Thousand
I still
days.
own it. I still own it. I still own stuff.
But I mean, there was stuff that we acquired that
but it was we bought the bad. We bought the good with the bad.
No, but that's different. My point is somebody let it get out of hand.
Oh, right? Absolutely. 100%.
Somebody let something go non-performing for 4 effing years. How is that even possible? Why would you allow that? Here's the reason why. Because people listen to the sellers, or excuse me, listen to borrowers tell them, oh, I lost my job, but I'm getting a bonus next week. My tax return's coming in. I'll bring it current, and it never happens.
My pandemic payment came in.
Or they don't escrow taxes and insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So the borrower is making only a payment for principal and interest, and taxes and insurance aren't getting paid. That's a problem. That's why you don't want to that's why you don't want to do all that crap. So I don't want to get into that side of it because we already solved that problem when we create it. That stuff doesn't happen because the borrower is going to make the mortgage payment. They're going to make it to the servicer. They're going to escrow taxes and insurance. And we're going to try to get out of that first note as soon as possible. So it can't go 60 days late and become a non-performing. That's why we sell it now. So then that becomes an experienced note buyer's problem if they don't, and it becomes their problem if they don't follow what they do. And most people that are note buyers, me, Eric, people that buy notes,
Nick, over the last 10 years, and there's been some cycles in there, and we're going to go through another one, obviously. But if you underwrite that borrower correctly, the asset is in line with loan to value, and the borrower puts their money down and they show ability to pay. How many true defaults have you had? I can tell you right now.
Well, exactly the number.
I've had, well, I've been lucky the last few years, but I've had zero. And I'm saying that would be, I'm blessed for that, but you've had very, 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 very few defaults if you do it right.
I think we had to shoot the warning signal over the bow of the boat about 15 times. Meaning we got to the point.
That's a lot. That's nothing. That's nothing. The
15 out of, but we're talking over 1,000 notes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. 15 times. So way. So
when people start talking about default, when people start talking about defaults with rental properties, if you had 1,000 rental properties and you had to turn them over and turn them over and turn them over and do what you do, yes, you've made some money on appreciation, but the math just it
doesn't matter. Let them
the single family home math works just fine the way we're doing it right now. That's why we do it.
There's nothing wrong with that model. It's just the model that we're not going to do.
Hey, why don't we answer John's question?
But I want to get back to what we were going to finish. I forget what we were just talking about. Was talking about the foreclosures, right?
Yes.
So of all that time, I think we ended up taking 3 or 4 properties back, and it was for stupid reasons. It's like the seller just went freaking dark and left the country.
No, I had one where we had a brother and a sister-in-law. That was my default, but it was easy because I just gave them it was a cash for keys deal, and the brother
wanted the real estate problem to go away.
No, the brother and the sister went to prison, and it was forever.
It
was a long-term problem. It's never going to change, and the poor gal was not going to afford it. So we worked it out. I actually went and found her another property for her and her kids, and she got her in a better financial position. But that's what we do as like human beings, other than banks, is we help solve problems. That's what we do. So that's the best part of what we do, is the opportunities that we provide. So let's answer John's question, and then we'll wrap this up.
Question. Let me make sure I didn't have anything, and then no,
because I answered a lot of them in the chat too.
So do we have anything? So if we missed your question, so Lewis, let me answer this question first, then we'll get to John. So Lewis said, I can't move my chat there. Hang on, why is it not moving? I just saw it pop up, but it's like weird. My screen's not letting me.
He wants to say how are defaults handled. Is that what you wanted to answer?
So I ask the question, go get go ahead and unmute yourself, Lewis, and then we'll go to John next. So ask this question a little bit more, so I understand the context of your question.
How you doing, guys?
Hey,
I just wanted to ask, what do you do in the case of defaults? If someone defaults on the loans?
great. That's good. Okay. So so let's talk about the process, right? So
Yeah.
they have to get to the non-performing level first, right? So usually, depending on how your servicing agreement is written with the servicer, they'll start having communications with the borrower probably at about 15 days late, right? They'll say what it is and they'll stay on them and they'll try to get the borrower back on schedule, and hopefully that solves it. But let's just say it continues on and on and on. There's a lot of ways to cure a default, right? You can get cash for keys, you can get a deed in lieu of foreclosure, you can do a loan modification, you can do a short sale. There's a lot of things that you can do. You can really try to help the borrower out of the situation. But let's just say they can't, and you got to go into but then the final option is the foreclosure, right? But what you always want to make sure you do, and then again, if you have it serviced, you don't have to do this, but this is for people that $28 billion that I told you about.
Right.
I need to find it. I have to look and see. I would bet you at least 50% of that is not serviced, if not more.
Right.
I don't know that answer, but I would like to figure that out.
Hey, Nick, I have a friend. He has $50 million worth of paper. Okay.
Okay.
And guess what he does?
Services it himself.
He self-services. I just talked to him like, what are you doing, man? And I'm
And are the taxes and insurance escrowed or not escrowed? Probably not.
No, he does it.
That's craziness. I mean, that's just doesn't. Just go do one instead of saving that little bit of money. Just go do another
Because I
goddamn
make
deal.
250,000 a
Crazy.
month,
But that's just how
and I'm
people
like,
think.
he makes 250,000 a month. I'm like, dude, for 2,500 a month, you could have it taken care of, man.
Right.
And do more deals. It's the opportunity cost that you get out of it. It's like my dad. My dad used to drive freaking 20 minutes across town to save a nickel on a gallon of gas. This was back in the 80s, right? He wouldn't do that now. He's smarter than he was back then, I guess. But it's like, really? Why would you do that? Well, I'm saving a nickel. I go, yeah, but it's costing you an hour. So instead of saving $2 on filling up your tank, why don't you figure out how to take that extra hour of time you can save to go make 100 times the $2? That makes more sense.
And you have a potential of getting in an accident, not coming back.
What's the opportunity cost of that? So, Lewis, it's just, there's a process and a protocol. It's just about being proactive, not reactive.
Hey, Lewis, real quick. I don't know if you've been in our if you bought the academy or what you at all, but there's systems and processes for everything that you do. That's in this business, and it's just literally a call. You just like, oh, this is what you do. And when I put in the chat, is it, and I talked about one of my notes that went into default. That was a long-term problem. Like the sister and brother-in-law were not coming back from prison for whatever they did. It wasn't good. Right. And so that was a long-term problem and she was not gonna be able to fix it to get herself in a financial position to pay that payment. So she needed to go put herself in a better position. It was a simple cash for keys deal. There was no attorneys involved. It was literally title, transfer, cash for keys, and put her and guided her in the right direction to put herself in a better financial position. In fact, there was so much equity in the property that I took back. I literally gave her majority of her down payment for her kids to go have a little bit of cash and another place to live. And so that's what I did. And that's what made financial sense to me and my company at the time. And I just went and resold it and did it again,
Okay. So I'm going to finish this default question up because first of all, if it's done right in the beginning and you have a good servicer and they're doing what they get paid to do, I mean, there's a cost with that, right? If a note stops performing, there's an additional fees that have to be paid by the lender for them to go cure the problem unless you want to cure it yourself. Okay. But the number of notes that are going to go into default unless you just ignore it is just an exception to the rule, right? So that's that's part of that process. But if it does, it does, and you got to figure out a way to cure it. So I wouldn't worry.
Okay.
The good news is that here's the other thing you got to think about. If you're doing writing a first and a second, and you sell in the first, keeping the second, you have no cost basis on the second, then it's really doesn't have anything to worry about anyway, because it's really whoever owns the first that's going to have to solve that problem. You can just sort of sit back and wait for the note to be, for that problem to be cured, because you still have a position on that in that deal. Even if it went to foreclosure, the first lien holder is going to get paid off in full. And if there's
Right.
any money left over, it's going to be yours, right? So the
Right.
question is, do you go chase it for a $20,000 note and do the foreclosure yourself? The answer is probably no anyway. You're just going to let it ride and just take, maybe it settles in foreclosure or it gets sold as whatever, and maybe you get 50 cents on the dollar that way. But
Okay.
anyway, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
The good news is you don't have to do that
thank you.
yourself. That's the best part of all of it, is that you don't have to do that. You have to give instructions to the servicer on what you want to do. Hey, I'll do a
Okay.
loan mod. They'll do the workout. They do all that stuff for you, right? That's what they get paid to
Okay.
do. There's a cost. You just say, well, I'll do, what do we got to do? Then they can help you, or an attorney. Like if you have a property that's going into foreclosure, here's how it goes. Here's how the conversation goes. Hey, Ian, I have a buyer in default, 123 Main Street. Let me know when you get my property back or get me paid. Thanks. Have a good day.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
it.
Right. So
That's
on
it.
every note, do you guys have an attorney? Or do you have an attorney?
So there's a
to deal-
trust, there's a designated trustee on the note. Okay.
Okay, okay.
I designated up front. Now, what you can see, this is how you know stuff's going to foreclosure. It's when there's a
And then notice a default, and there's a trustee's deed.
but there's
Okay.
somebody, I can't, there's a change of trustee, meaning,
Oh, an assignment.
no,
An assignment, a
no,
transfer.
it's like, it's the trustee gets changed on the note. So
Okay.
it changes from the first trustee that's originally written to
Right.
whoever the bank brings in to be the
Oh.
foreclosure attorney. So
These
you
are on bank.
track that. It's called not a substitution of trustee, but it's something similar that my mind slips me right now. So they changed the trustee's name.
Okay.
If you look at a promissory note, okay,
Yeah.
it's got in there the trustee that's in there, okay?
Yeah,
the
okay.
attorney,
I've seen that.
okay?
I've seen that.
But what
yeah.
happens is that the bank will do a substitution of trustee. I think that's what it's called. If I'm wrong, if somebody
Yes.
put it in the chat,
So they'll have their own trustee pretty much.
they'll change it because maybe the trustee they put in wasn't theirs to begin with, and they'll change it over notice of yeah, there it is. Notice, thanks, Will. Notice of substitution of trustee. That's
Okay.
that's another list that you can see before it actually goes to foreclosure, right? If you're doing list stacking or something like that, when you see that list and you see that trustee name change, you know what's getting ready to happen.
Okay.
Because
Got
they're more, because you can put any attorney on there, or individual for that matter. And then, but when you go to the foreclosure, you're going to want to make sure that you have that, the right trustee, the right
The
attorney
trustee.
to do it. But there again, it's just a simple phone call. If I don't get paid, I just call the attorney and say, Ian, take care of this.
Okay.
Send me the bill. Let me know when you either get me paid or get my property back. That's it. And if it becomes an REO, then I solve that problem. If I get my money back and we had to do something else, we can do that, because he can do the loan mod and the workout and stuff like that too. So, all right, let's.
Perfect. Thank you for
Right,
answering that.
have a good one.
I
All
understand.
right, last question. John is up there waiting. So John, go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's bring him on, and this will be the last question, and we'll wrap it up for the day. What you got, Ben?
Hey, guys. It's a very general question about modeling and deal or no deal. I was modeling a property this week that I thought for sure was going to pencil out. And when I mean pencil out, being cash neutral, that's the overall goal. And you had just mentioned, Nick, about you were willing to overpay for a property. And this may not make any sense, but are there things that you look for, indicators that you look for, or different strategies to help a property pencil out? Because I thought for sure this thing was going to pencil and was very kind of deflated when I was looking at.
Just the one that we looked at.
No,
we
no,
modeled
different
it.
one. And it was taking like 40 months to be cash neutral.
Do you have the model you can throw in the chat for me real quick and I'll pull it up? You have it handy? It'd be a lot easier to look at it and see because it could be it could be an error in a formula or something like that.
I don't think it was an error. I think it was.
So how much was, so just tell me so how much was the
Yeah, I can tell you real quick. Before
just tell me the negative cash. What was the negative cash?
Well, initially it was brought to me by a realtor and that I've done business with in the past. It was acquisition. He was offering at 180.
Okay.
It was ARV of 265, possibly more. I was figuring on if you were going to rehab it to be a $30,000 rehab.
Okay. And what would that get
your
you to?
formula, your formula was to take like 50% of the rehab and figure
So
that.
what would the ARV be if you did 30,000 in rehab?
It would be probably 270, 275. But
Okay, so say
I know what
270 minus 15. So I'm selling that thing on terms at 250 to 255.
That's what I was figuring. And
Okay.
when I penciled that out, it was giving me like, a 40-month cash neutral.
But how much was, okay, but my question is, that's fine. But I mean, how much was the negative cash on that model? How much?
Oh, we were still looking at like 15,000.
But how big is the second? How big is the second mortgage on that?
It was pretty
$50,000.
big. Yeah, it was solid.
Okay. So what makes you think that's not a deal? I'm just curious.
Because I want to be cash neutral. I don't have the capital.
Well, then you're gonna have to either negotiate a better deal. But here's what we're talking about in the model. The question is, were you writing that as a 70% first?
I brought it down. I forget the numbers that you said to reduce from 75, 90 to what was it?
70 and 90, 70.
I think you said 7288.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
So
that's what I was looking at.
so let's just say you did it if you change it to 75 and 88, that's obviously going to be a smaller second and more cash. What is that? Does that get you to cash? Does that get you to cash neutral? Because I'm not saying you want to, because the question, you run the risk that you can't get that your valuations are off. So you got to be careful with that. Things have changed in the market, right? So you got to,
Right.
What's happening is that you have to realize is that there is some level of subjectivity if you're not going to get the appraisal done. Okay. If you're not going to get a BPO or an appraisal done and you want to sell that note and somebody's going to come in and go, well, shit, you're using comps from 6 months ago. Okay. Well,
Right.
It's not worth 280 anymore. I think it's only worth 250. So now I'm going to base my note purchase based on a value of 250 because I'm trying to assess the risk.
Right.
Right. That's ultimately what this is. So what my position is, and what I recommend is write a lower dollar value first, go to 70, okay, which makes your second higher.
Right.
And your cash goes down lower. So you end up with a bigger.
But then when you do
less
that,
cash.
when you do that, you get less cash, but you don't lose the equity in that
You
cash
don't
flow
lose the
from the second.
discount.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Okay. You don't.
So it's
Yeah.
that ratio between the first and second. If you're not going
Yes.
cash neutral, get the second higher, bring the first down, and that's going to help you
Yep.
get to cash
Yep.
neutral.
We'll
Yep.
do it next week on the call.
Bingo.
We'll put it in there and we'll show what we'll do it again. I think we actually did that. I think we actually did it during our master class, the 2-day that we did. But we'll
Okay,
go back
so-
and
All right, so that's the trick.
Yeah, it's the levers.
here's the way I look at it. Because would I like to get cash neutral? Yeah, because that means I can do more deals. Okay.
Right.
But here's the question. Do you want to be, and this is a personal question everybody asks, do you want to be cash neutral and have a $25,000 free and clear second note? Or do you want to be $15,000 invested for a $55,000 second note?
Right.
That's it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I understand.
you gotta have
So-
the
so-
15,
but
you gotta have
think
15.
about this. Think about this. Let's say you it costs you 10, but you gain it on, and let's say it was a $30,000 second, but you turn it into a 40, but it costs you 10,000. But you're going to get your money back in 28 months.
Stop right a
You're
second.
gonna get your money back in
Doesn't-
28 months.
But hang on a second, Eric. It doesn't cost you anything. It's an
No,
investment.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Let's make sure we
Yes.
clarify that. Just because it
Yes.
goes negative in the model, that doesn't mean you're losing money. All it means you're doing is investing to get the return.
Right.
When you
right.
can't calculate the return on your investment, it's really easy to do. Go in and put, it says, oh, it's gonna cost me $8,000, but I'm gonna get cash flow. That's a
But
return.
Nick, do this. Just do 350. Just if you did 351, I just did on a $40,000 second lien at 10%. That's 351 times 12. It's 4212 divided by the investment, the investment extra. If it was, it's a 42% return on
No,
annual
it's
return.
way more than that. Give me the numbers again.
So if
350.
your payment's 351 times 12 and your investment, not cost, was 10,000. Divide that by 10,000.
That's a
I'm just not
42% return.
I'm just saying annual.
Yes.
It's just an annual
Right.
return. How many of those, how many 42% do you need in your life?
But that's, yeah, I mean, what was your ROI or your yield on that, John?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
did you look at that?
I don't know that offhand, and I
Because guarantee
apologize.
you it was pretty high.
Yeah, I
Okay,
apologize for giving this in generalities.
Oh, that's
Is that
okay.
answer of changing that ratio is what
Yeah.
I was really looking at, because it's
Dude,
kind of
put the model
deflating.
together, go and look at it, and we'll bring it up next week and we'll.
Yeah,
just
let's-
Yeah, that's
do it.
cool.
Let's do it next week because it'll
Yeah,
help
yeah.
everybody.
No, I
really
should have done that to
guys.
begin with. I was just looking for generalities rather than doing a deep dive.
Cash,
Yes.
negative cash, I'm gonna say it again, it's really important. Negative cash does not mean you losing money.
Yeah,
It means you're investing into the return.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
No, I understand that.
That's
I'm
it.
with you
But it's
on
a
that.
big misconception that
yeah.
if it looks like that, but you gotta have the money to invest.
That's the one. That's the question of right now, it's all about getting cash neutral.
But you know what? If you gotta go
go.
gap fund it, you can go
Hey,
gap fund it.
well, but think about this for a minute. The gal, the original question, she had $100,000 that she was trying to get back and, reinvest it and get it back in turn. How many of those would that's 10 deals. And then you just keep recycling your money over and over and over and over again. That's a good investment, right?
Yeah.
That's just the question. If you asked me, would I do that deal? Because this is what we would do. You guys can make your own decisions. How I would do as many as I could get for that.
Because you gotta think about it. We're in the note investors hat, right? Because we're creating notes. We're at the end of the day, what's your alternative?
Yep.
Where are you going to invest $10,000 or $15,000 to get a 42% return secured by a hard asset?
Right.
Where are you going
Secured.
to get that from? Are you going to get it by buying Tesla stock? No.
Maybe.
No, I can get it now. You going to get it by owning crypto? No. No.
Well, what you could do is go borrow the 10 and give someone a 10% return and have their money back in 3
Absolutely.
years and be done.
100%.
And then it's all yours. Now you got 27 years left. to
That's
get paid.
exactly what you do. You
So
go
this
borrow.
is higher. This is what we talk about when we're in our coaching, like more of the deeper dive stuff. But Nick and I love sharing this with you guys. But let's do this. Let's go through that deal next week.
Send it over.
And
We'll
then-
do it next week
Yeah.
and we'll show
Yeah.
it. And then, you know, what
but
we'll
I was-
probably do next week, if we can, is that if you have, we'll probably actually maybe do it as a deal or no deal thing. And we'll bring in 3 or 4 or 5 deals and look at the numbers and see. I mean, because we haven't done
And
that
what's
in a while.
working in
What's
today's
that
market.
minute-
Not only that, John, real quick, maybe we look at that deal and go, hey, what if you smoothed out because this is what you said. Nick would pay 20% more or 5% more, whatever, for that property. The reason and I'm going to answer it for you, and then you tell me if I'm right. If the seller gave you terms, what if you could buy that property for 200,000 at 0% and pay him out till, and pay him off in 300 payments? Would you pay more? Would you pay 200 for that?
Yeah,
Nick?
then you got arbitrage.
Yeah.
You're smoking then. It's great. This was a more of like from a wholesaler. It was coming from a realtor. He
Yep.
wants to cash out, so I
Yep.
had to cash him out with hard money or home equity, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was
What they
manipulating
want and
those
what they
numbers.
get are two different things now, man. Just remember that.
Excuse me?
What they want and what they get are two
Yeah.
different things now.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
wanted that, they should have sold it 6 months ago, because
Mhm.
right now it's a buyer's market for most. It is a
Yep.
buyer's market. I don't care what anybody says. They get
Okay.
it at the price. Because inflation and increased rates on interest, on interest rates have gone up. It's wiped out. It's wiped out.
This is
40%
just so
of
you
buyers.
guys know, Nick and I were talking about this yesterday. That 2 points, that percentage of interest rate points, and let's say we were talking about a friend of ours is literally looking at a $4 million house. The 2 points to them was like, whatever, it's still 5%, right? But that 3 to 5 or 5.5, or even going to 6 at that $180,000 to $250,000 buyer, they're out. They may not qualify now. And guess what we get to do? We get to go, and that's where we can come in. And so that traditional like median home price buyer, which is our seller finance buyers, that's what we're looking for. So I think the opportunities for us now are really going to be good. So, we'll see as the market changes and what goes on, but the opportunities are there for sure.
Okay.
So
cool.
let's wrap it up. I got another actually call at the
Yeah.
top
All
of
right,
the
guys. Well,
meeting of the hour.
thanks for hanging in there. Hope that helps you guys out, and we'll post it next week.
And please, real quick, put everything in Facebook, because we'll gather all that information, and then we like to share it with the group so everybody benefits versus individual answers. Okay, so that's what helps. I think it's been helping.
Because people
We're gonna do
not
some more.
everybody can join us during the live. They were driving a
Yep.
bus,
Yep.
working on a roof, at a bank, and they don't get to sit in the corner and just hang out and listen to what we have to say. So that's why we want you to put that in there so everybody can benefit from the answers. So, all right, guys, have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
All right, see ya. Bye.